Sveiki, mėly klausytojai ir skaitytojai. Mano vardas Rimutė Van Cleave, esu įkūrusi iKnygos Foundation. Mes su komanda jau esame nemažai išleidę saviugdos knygų įžymių autorių kaip Džono Kycho, Maiklo Singerio, Harvardo Falko knygas. Mūsų kruopščiai atrinktos ir išverstas knygas galite rasti ir įsigyti mūsų website www.minčių.lt. Jas galite rasti popieriniu formatu ir audio formatu. Taip pat galite įsigyti knygynuose, prekybos centruose, audiotekoje, Audible. Bet šiandien aš noriu pristatyti naują mūsų ką tik išleistą knygą Išgydyk savo mintis, kurią parašė dvi autorės. Daktarė Lisa Schulz su Lisa Hay. Dabar šiek tiek noriu Jums papasakoti apie pagrindinę autorę, daktarę Lisa, kuri neužilgo ir prisijungs prie mūsų pokalbio. Ji studijavo neuropsichiatriją 20 metų ir yra viena iš retų mokslininkų, kurie peržengia mokslo, medicinos, intuicijos ir mistikos ribas. Ji yra išleidusi 28 kalbomis knygas, autorė ir bendraautorė. Daktarė Lisa intuityviai gali nustatyti konkrečiai mūsų fizinės sveikatos problemas, išsiaiškinus visas emocinės, aplinkos, santykių, profesinės ir dvasinės aplinkybės. Autorė licencijuota neuropsichiatrijos gydytoja, kuria dirbo 35 metus. Šiuo metu jau išėjusi į pensiją ir leidžia laiką Jarmant mieste nuostabiame name su 4 katytėmis. Taigi jos darbų apimtis sudaro Vermonto mokyklos universiteto psichiatrijos profesoriaus asistentė, intuityvios medicinos, neuropsichiatrė Portlando medicinos ir Meino medicinos centre. Taip pat nemažai pasidarbavo mokslinių tyrimų redaktorė, konsultantė, bestselerių autoriai daktarė Kristina Norford. Populiariausių naujienų ir knygos Awakening Intuition autorė. Jos pasirodymas žiniasklaidoje apima nacionalinį radiją, kelis dešimtmečius ji dalyvauja Hauheis radijoje, o taip pat jinai dalyvavo Oprah Winfrey ir daktaras Ozas televizijos laidose, Discovery kanaluose. Daktarė Lisa yra parašiusi keletą knygų. Tai Awakening Intuition, The New Feminine Brain, The Intuitive Advisor, Body Mind Makeover, Body Talk, Igniting Intuition, Mystical Molecules Heal from Illness. Ši knyga beje tik išeis kitais metais ir autorė dar ją tik tai rašo. 2 knygas jinai yra parašiusi kartu su Lisa Hay, tai All is Well, ir kita knyga yra Heal Your Mind, apie kurią šiandien ir kalbėsime su pačia autorė. Ši knyga man padarė didžiulį įspūdį. Todėl aš mielai dalinuosi su jumis, mieli klausytojai ir skaitytojai, ir kalbinsime autorę, daktarę Lisa. Hello, Dr. Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
I am very good. How are you today?
I am okay. We're having a little bit of a up thing. You know, the whole world is reorganizing themselves, and I'm not one of those people. So I'm one of the people who's reorganizing their lives.
But thank you for agreeing to have a talk with Lithuanian speaking readers. You are one of the most well-known writers of the books and articles explaining how to use our minds to live a healthier and more productive life. What inspired you to be a writer?
Oh, well, that's the interesting thing. I'm not a writer, I'm an author. Because a lot of the people who are interested in my work, the field of intuition. It is the right brain, the emotional, intuitive, spiritual brain. Writing is the other side, it's the left brain. And I actually have a brain that's more developed for intuition. On an MRI, a CT scan, I have a very big right brain and a tiny, tiny left one. So actually I have trouble writing and reading. And so it's like I give a lecture of the material on tape or directly to a writer, and she puts it in English. She fixes the grammar. And then I work with an editor and they make it make sense so that they make it sound like the way I talk. But if I was to write it, it would sound like a prosthesis because it's artificial. It's like I wasn't born with language, but I make do like someone who's born without arms. You kind of know at a distance, oh, they have arms, but when you get close, you go, oh, that's not real. That's a prosthesis. So I wrote because actually an editor approached me. I was working on Chris Northup's book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, and she heard that I was on the Oprah show. I had done 2 readings live on the air, and she found out that I had done a reading on in the hospital as a medical student, that I could tell intuitively in my mind's eye what was wrong with my patients ahead of time. And so by the time, before I got to the emergency room, in my mind's eye, I could hear them screaming, doctor, doctor, it's my gallbladder. So in the elevator or wherever I was stuck, I would look up how to work them up. And by the time I got to the elevator, I had this structure drawn out, and I could use my intellect, left brain, balanced with my right brain, intuition, to be a medical student. I would get out of the hospital faster, and it gave me more time to actually use my left brain to read and write. So I only became an author because that publisher was interested in that story. That's why, actually.
Where you get your inspiration and ideas for the book, Heal Your Mind?
Well, Louise Hay was this figure that I saw on the other end of a speaking gig. Northup had been speaking. And at first, she was one of those terrifying people you meet. You know, like this blonde Wizard of Oz way in the distance. Scary. The more powerful people, the scary. I'm part Catholic, Christian, part Judaism. And so they say the beginning of wisdom begins with fear. And Portuguese, one has a healthy fear and respect of the ocean. You don't just go running in there, you'll drown. Mm-hmm. So I would watch Louise like I would watch Carolyn Mace from a distance. Carolyn I had behind a ficus tree and just watched her. She was another one I was scared of. But Louise I was scared of, so I watched her. And she just looked very perfect and very blonde, and very California. And actually, she's not. She's a tough New Yorker. You know, these people, they go to LA and they go to California, San Diego, and they you know, put on purple velvet and they work in the new age. And, you know, people think tough as nails. Anyway, so I heard about that little book. And when I have a brain disorder, part epilepsy and part a form of narcolepsy. And I had trouble staying awake. And the first drug they gave me was a wonderful anticonvulsant that helped me graduate from Brown. I went from a 2.22 off the medicine to a 4.0 on it. It was unbelievable, but it wiped out my bone marrow. So I had to get off of it. I was very devastated. So I went to one of these bookstores and, you know, those pookie, and off the bookshelf comes flying her book, Heal Your Body. And it had, you know, your gallbladder means this, your joints mean this. And so I thought, and you do these things called affirmations. So being an athlete, a runner, and racing bicycles, I figured doing those affirmations were like doing reps in a gym where you lift weights 5 times. So I figured I'd do these affirmations like reps, like lifting weights, lifting neurons in the brain, heal your mind, lifting neurons, like changing the mindset, plasticity. And so I did. And it helped me stay awake. I was stunned. I did those reps, those affirmations in journals. And so I wanted to know how they worked. I wanted to know if those statements that she had in the back in her book, Heal Your Mind, which she sold gazillions of copies. This is a little pamphlet that was made by observational study. In science, there's different types of research. Hers is an observational study. She sits in a room and listens to these people speak. And she writes it down. She tabulates it. And she publishes it. She doesn't have a high school education. Do you understand? I did the BA at Brown, an Ivy League school, an MD, and a PhD. It cost me $275,000 in student loans. This woman sits in a room, listens to people, puts it in a chart, and sells it. It goes all over the world. She opens up a publishing company. Nerve. Anyway, I figure I want to know if there's science in it. So there I am. And I became a Hale House author. They hired me to write a book, The Intuitive Advisor. Available at Amazon. Gratuitous pitch. Anyway, so I went up to Louise at a cocktail party after hiding behind a ficus for a suitable amount of time. She was scary. And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, Dr. Hay," because I call everybody doctor because they're scared. I'm scared. It's a reverent thing. Ms. Hay, because you'd call her, everybody calls her Louise, but I just think that's not reverential enough. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" And she said, "Yes, you just asked your first one." That's the way she is. Brilliant. I spent my entire time with Louise. Heal Your Mind, trying to show her how brilliant she was. I think it actually aggravated her because she never graduated from high school. Suffice it to say, my mother's relatives never came over the boat from Portugal, and they never even graduated from high school. So it must have been like this genetic thing. But suffice it to say, I said, I'm a scientist, I'm a physician and a scientist. I have an MD and a PhD. Are you interested to find out if those statements you make in your book, I said, mind you, I think it's hubris that you make those statements. This means this means this causes this, but I won't say anything. We'll leave it at that. She just looks and smiles as she's carrying this beverage. I don't drink. And everyone around me is like, who is this woman? I said, do you ever want anybody to do research to find out if there's science to support your statements? She grabs my wrist, drags me to the president of Hay House, Reed Tracy, and says, do this book. And so Louise and I would meet on Skype, and we did All Is Well and Heal Your Mind. And we would meet and we would do chapters, and it was intense. She's a piece of work. She's brilliant and she's tough as nails. I want you to know, everyone I've ever respected, there's a wonderful shaman, the shamans, curanderas, whatever you want to call them. They're all terrifying, they're scary, and they're brilliant. And I seem to have a magnetic desire to work with these people because they have a brilliance that is unbelievable. And their work lives forever. So I don't say Louise Hay was, I say Louise Hay is. Her work is. And the fact is that on the plane ride on the way home, I cracked her code. Her work does hold water. It matches the anatomy of emotion that is laid down by a neuroanatomist who studied with the same mentor that I did, Antonio Damasio, that fear goes to certain organs, anger, sadness, love, and joy, and it has a stereotypical expression. And when she says love does this, no, she says fear does this, anger does this, she uses the same word. And then when she talks about the correction, the affirmation, she talks about the antidote, which is the release or unconstrict. She uses prototypical words that are the biology of what we know is behind the emotion of those characteristic illnesses. I cracked a code on the plane ride on the way home. Was that me? No, it was God, the divine, the universe, whatever you believe in. I'm not that smart. Suffice it to say, I called Louise up and I went, you're right, you're right. I cracked your code. I have your code. You have a system. She said, I don't have a system. I said, yes, you do. I know you have a system. And the fact is she didn't. And I've worked in a lot of research. I've worked in a lot of labs. And when you do science, science is the study of truth. And there's nothing better. It's better than the best sex. That you don't look for results. The results speaks to you. It's revealed to you. And it is the most unbelievable, simple and elegant truth. It's not convoluted. You know, these people who write these books with a convoluted theory, you know that they're way off, way, way off. And when they try to say to you, it's much more complicated than that. You know that they're trying to put themselves in a spiritual level above you. And B, they don't really know what it is. Louise Hay's knowledge of the anatomy of health and how to reverse it, in part, the part that you can affect it, because every illness is always in part due to diet, genetics, the environment. She is simple and elegant and brilliant, and it matches what we know about the neuroanatomy of emotion and illness. That's how I met Louise Hay. I know that that's a long story, but I'm sorry.
No, you answered a lot of questions. I
know, that's why I told you I'm going to check them off. Bing, 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 bing. That's
but I have
Louise
another
Hay.
one.
Go ahead.
Some readers apply the affirmations techniques that you and Lisa Hay recommended in the book, such as thanking themselves for the accomplishments, and yet their illness does not go away.
Oh, that's easy. That was okay.
What are some possible reason for this, and what might they doing incorrectly when they're using affirmations?
Perfect. Okay, this is the first thing. First of all, I've met with people who I'm very spiritual, religious, or whatever you want to call it, devoutly. Okay. I've been told that I have a very rudimentary, concrete understanding of spirituality. I don't know about that. That everybody has their own understanding of spirituality. I guess I would say that though we have the divine within us, that all of divinity isn't us. And we know that optimism helps with health because it releases opiates, it elevates your mood, and our white cells have serotonin receptors. But even the best mood, after a while, I remember when I was 12, before I had this huge surgery on my spine. First of all, I should tell you about my house growing up. On the way into the hospital, I didn't cry. It was the best year of my life. On the way in, I looked up and went, I'm going to come back here and be a doctor and a scientist someday to study. And, you know, I went in there. I didn't cry. All the other people cried. I was happy as a clam. I only cried once. This is in the book I'm writing right now, Gratuitous Pitch. It's called Mystical Molecules. I had to be on an 8-foot by 2-foot-inch frame flat on my back. When all of us are trapped in a situation where we've done all the affirmations, we've done all the diet, we've gotten rid of the diet, the wheat, we've done the visualization, we've done the affirmations, we've done everything that ends in an ION.
Mhm.
I was 12. I didn't have abstract processing yet. I was on a Stryker frame, and twice a day or 4 times a day, they flipped you over so you didn't get bed sores. And this particular time, I was flat on my stomach and I was supposed to get lunch. And I ate lunch through this hole that my face was on. And so lunch came late that day. And it was this barley soup, B-A-R-L-E-Y. And it was cold. And the grease started to be a slick. This cold slick. And I started to cry. I just started to cry and cry and cry because all of my roommates had left. And the nurse came in and said, oh my, because, you know, she's like you. She's like all the other people who have suffered, have gone through an illness, have done everything in affirmations. And what it does is, mystical molecules, it reorients your brain through the cortisol and the norepinephrine. When you're trying everything, it reorients the stress hormones, change your brain so that you access intuitively, mystically, compassion and access to the divine. Other ways of being in the world while you're trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do next. And so it also gives you a capacity to feel someone else's suffering as well. So there's this nurse. What can I do? Can I get you a burger? Can I get this? Can I get that? And I was like, no, there's nothing you can do. Because all of a sudden, it came to me. There was nothing anybody could do to make me feel better. There wasn't a hamburger. There weren't chocolate chip cookies. There wasn't candy. There was no one on earth who could make me feel better. It was only then in that moment of being trapped in inescapable stress where no one could help me that I had to begin to be aware that there was something else that could help me. And that was faith. Did I start to believe in God? No. It's that first step where you start to realize where not to go. You realize that eating a cookie is not going to help. Drinking beer is not going to help. Having sex is not going to help. You begin to realize going to yet another doctor is not going to help. You eventually figure out what that stuff's not going to help. And that is the first step. When that medicine stopped working, it opened up a whole other line of stuff. When you try everything, it doesn't mean you failed. It means that just what you've tried doesn't work yet. And mind you, I've had a lot of problems. I've had breast cancer. My entire spine is fused except for one disc. I've been run over by trucks, cars, everything but chased by wild dogs. You know the story. My bowel doesn't work because of all the spinal surgeries. I get bowel obstructions. I take this expensive medicine to be able to do it. Anyway, the point of the matter is it gets boring after a while. What is that phrase that used to be on that country music song? Hee-haw. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep dark depression, excessive misery. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. No. Hope is what you do until you get to the next solution. You say, this too will pass. There's a lot of crying. There's a lot of praying. There's a lot of distracting.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes you feel you failed. A lot of times people don't understand. A lot of times doctors think you're nuts. But you just keep going because something's going to happen around the corner and you try something else. But stop going to someone who doesn't think they can help you. It's a gift. It means that there's something else that you're going to try. Do you understand?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Never stop trying.
There is a gift in being trapped in an unsolvable problem, because it rewires your brain mystically to go beyond the earth to a repository where there's another way of thinking of solutions. It rewires your brain. Catastrophe and crisis rewires your brain to be able to access that repository of ability. We know this from the work of PTSD, that it rewires your white matter. You may feel brain fog, you may have trouble with focus and attention, but that is an exquisite capacity to connect to the divine intuition. You may not be able to read a paragraph without reading it 5 million times. You may repeat yourself a lot of times and not remember someone's name. However, they call that frontal executive function. You lose your frontal lobe. You become distractible to things on earth, but you become more receptive to things in the heavens.
Thank you. Another question is kind of...
I hope that answered that question.
Yes, I got it. Another question, because you were talking a lot about your 12 years illness and why the babies or kids get sick. I understand babies do not have any habits or thoughts about themselves. So what can cause them to develop sickness? What do you think?
There are a couple of things. Number one, it's genetic, and they came in with that struggle. Number two, everything is in part due to diet, genetics, and the environment. Harvard had done studies of children who've had abused backgrounds, and they're more likely to have accidents and complex health problems. There are people with a variety of in utero environments where aberrant placenta, blood, maternal hormones rewires their brain for left-handedness. This is the work of Geschwin and Galaberta. It was a 3-part series in Archives of Neurology. Rewires their brain to left-handedness, autoimmune, atypical relationships. However, it increases their chance toward creativity and a different kind of mind. So why I bring that up is kids are born with different kinds of brains, just like we have different kinds of cars. And we're born with different kinds of health challenges in a continuum of severity. They afford us depending on one's temperament, and if you can get a mother figure somewhere in your life, a capacity to be an exceptional human being.
I would like to ask another question about intuition.
Go ahead.
What is the difference between intuition and mental reasoning? When both are present, which one do you follow and why?
The whole aspect of intuition, understanding what's going on, tapping into something else. The inference would be that we are tapping into some kinds of thing in the air, some particle or wave that we can't see. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. People are like, well, I don't believe in it. Well, do you believe in love? Do you believe in happiness? Well, no, you may not. Well, then it doesn't mean that other people don't have it. Suffice it to say, there are people who are in Cuba or some other country, and all of a sudden they start getting headaches, or they hear this sound, and all of a sudden their brains get injured. And now they realize that there is a war weapon that armies are using that involve a wave that injures white matter tissue. So it's clear that there's electromagnetic waves that can alter our cognition. So now, if we want to think rationally, we would think that, okay, our thoughts, cognition, move linearly or in a network, non-linearly or in multiple dimensions. However, I think we would all lack a little bit of humility to understand that we are simple-minded and there is an intelligence way beyond us. I guess what most people say is, I don't believe that, because they don't want to go beyond what their brains can comprehend. Suffice it to say, they've done studies with insects where they grow them in a vat that's closed. And when they get to a certain age, they uncover the vat and the insects never leave the vat. And many people never allow themselves to want to consider, not believe, consider that there is another form of wisdom beyond what they can comprehend. Or if they can't comprehend it, it doesn't exist. That is narcissism in its finest. And that, if anything, is closed-minded as much as those flies that grew up in that small vat. I would call those people, well, how flea-like are you? Suffice it to say, so I think cognition is what we have, and everything else is what we don't have, that we can't explain stuff that we're able to do. And last but not least, suffice it to say, that is humility. The older I live, the less I know. And that's a quote from Barbara Streisand. The more I learn, the less I know. That's called wisdom. And that's a quote from Albert Einstein. The older he got, the stupider he realized he was. That's my response to you. I know that was a long-winded statement, but the answer is, if someone tries to give you some three-dimensional, high particle physics thing, they're trying to understand something with a limited reasoning that no one's supposed to be able to understand. Because you don't have the perspective of how the trees were made, how the air was made, how the earth is with everything else. Where were you?
So you can't recognize intuition and mental reason. Can you, if it comes like in the present time?
Intuition can come through your body, it can come through your brain, it can come through a dream, it can come through a symbol. It's a multifaceted experience that is wired differently with every person, depending on how their brain and body are wired and what experiences come to them.
Yes. I know, Dr. Mona Lisa, you're so busy, and just one more question, okay? And I will let you go. What is the one thing presented in the book that you believe is the most important thing to readers to become aware of, understand about the power of healing the mind by thoughts?
That your thoughts aren't your thoughts. The fallacy is your thoughts are not just your thoughts. Your thoughts could be someone else's thoughts in the house who are angry. Your thoughts could be part of an attitude you were born with. Your thoughts could be wrong. Your thoughts could be intuition or mysticism from the divine. Learn. Have fun. Kiss a cat, a dog. Open up your minds and body. Don't just go by what you think. I talk to people who have guides. They say, I'm waiting for my guide to tell me something. Well, that's a closed system. You interpret your guide. Get a village of people. Consider everything they say. And sometimes just do what they tell you because they said so. Because that's in fact faith. Sometimes you're just going to have faith.
Yeah. So is there anything that you would like to add to our conversation, Dr. Mona Lisa?
Be happy and believe in life.
Thank you.
Because that, in fact, is all there is, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Come to Maine, come to Maine, come to Maine.
Thank you so much for taking this time of your busy day to speak to me about the marvelous book, Heal Your Mind.
Thank you so much.
This book has been very interesting and helpful to me. I am sure many listening to this interview will be motivated to read this book. If somebody read already, will be motivated to read again. It's true.
Don't forget to call if they want a reading. They can call, go to www.drmonalisa.com, www.drmonalisa.com. If they want to learn, I have a class each July. It's a 7-day class.
Mhm.
People say they're never different. Maybe if they come to the class, they'll meet you. And they'll go, oh my God, I met somebody who's famous. She's wonderful. I met someone, a star. Famous writer.
You are.
Author Rimute. I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry. I have a speech impediment. You take it
Thank you,
easy.
Mona
I have
Lisa.
to. I'm late for my Instagram live. I hope people are still there. You have a nice day. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I was late.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.